Hello, everybody. Welcome. I hope that you're having a great start to your weekend. And if it's not your weekend, I hope it's a good day at work. All right, so we are going to be talking about 10 common phrasal verbs for everyday life. All right, phrasal verbs are very common. We use them all the time. So it's always a good idea to learn a little bit more about them. All right, definitely good to just learn about them. I'm just checking that everything is working with my screen. All right, I'm just checking all the settings. Okay, so if you didn't already know, my name is Tanita. I am an ESL coach and I specialize in helping students or those who are learning a language like English to learn better and faster and more efficiently. So it basically means I want to give you tools and strategies in the language that you need to make it easier to learn English. But these strategies also work for any language. So even if you're learning German or French or Portuguese or Mandarin, you could also use a lot of these strategies and techniques that I share. Okay, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let's get straight into our 10 common phrasal verbs for everyday life. We're going to have a look at multiple meanings if they are, and we're also going to have a look at some maybe new vocabulary that I share. There will also be some example sentences to help you understand context. And remember, there is also an exercise at the end of this live. If you complete the activities, which I've developed so that you can actually use what I covered today, if you complete them and put it in the comments, you can stand a chance to win a 50-minute session with me. All right, and you can use that 50-minute session for anything, deciding what to focus on next, finding out where your struggles are and what you can do to overcome them. Those tend to be the common sort of session questions that I get from a lot of students. Okay, let's begin. Our first phrasal verb for today that we're going to look at is take off. All right, there are 3 common meanings that we're looking at for this phrasal verb. The first one is to remove clothing or accessories from oneself. Okay, so if I am getting very hot and I want to remove this, I take it off. Another meaning is when we talk about an airplane, which means to leave the ground and start flying. So when an airplane, also sometimes called aeroplane, all right, or sometimes even just plane, all right, when it starts to fly, we call that the takeoff. And then an informal meaning of this phrasal verb is to become successful or popular quickly. So if something becomes successful or really popular, like a celebrity, very quickly, we say that they take off. Let's look at some examples. All right, I took off my coat as soon as I entered the warm house. Okay, so the house was warm, maybe feeling a bit warm, so took off. I took off my coat. I removed it from my body. The second one, the plane took off smoothly from the runway. So here we can see it took off, meaning it began to start flying smoothly from the runway. And the third one, her career really took off after she starred in that blockbuster movie. Okay, there are 2 words that I sort of want to look at here, which is runway and star. Okay, so let's quickly look at runway, okay, as a noun. All right, it's a paved road for planes to take off and land. So this little road over here is called a runway. We normally see them at the airport. If you have a very small airport, it might even be just a piece of land that's been cleared of trees and grass. It's just dirt and it's as smooth as it can be. That can also be a runway. And then star, you're probably familiar with this word as a noun, you know, like the stars that you see in the sky. I wanted to focus on star in this example sentence in C. All right, it can also be used as a verb. Okay, and it means to be featured in a movie, to act in a movie. So if you act or are in a movie, you have starred in that movie. If you're going to do the movie in the future, you will star in the movie. So just remember, with verbs, we have to change according to the different tenses and context that we're using. So star can also be a verb. It's not only a noun. It's not only our little twinkly stars in the night sky. Okay, so that is take off 3 common meanings. Of course, there are sometimes other meanings, but for the purposes of today, I wanted to focus on just the main ways that we might use these phrasal verbs. Let's go to phrasal verb number 2, which is look up. Okay, so let's look at the 3 different meanings of this. Or the first one is to search for information in a reference source, such as a dictionary or the internet. All right, so we have some source of information. When we search that book or dictionary or the web, for example, we look up that thing. The second common meaning is to locate or find something by searching or investigating. Okay? And the third one, which is the literal meaning, which basically means the action that you would be doing. It means to direct one's gaze upward. Okay. All right. So if we look up, it means from here, this is where I'm looking, and now I'm going to take my eyesight and move it up, so I look up. Okay, let's look at some examples. The first one is, I need to look up the definition of this word in the dictionary. Okay, I'm sure as language learners, you're very familiar with having to look up some words in the dictionary or on the web. The second one, can you look up the nearest coffee shop on your phone? Okay, we're not sort of searching for information, we're looking for something like a coffee shop. So maybe you want a nice cup of coffee and you don't know any coffee shops in the area. You can look up the nearest one to where you are on your phone or computer or whatever. All right, so we look it up, we search or investigate for something. And the last one, she looked up at the sky and admired the stars. All right, so remember, it's to direct your gaze. So if I look up into the sky, all right, I might be enjoying the beautiful blue sky, the stars, the clouds, the sunset, the sunrise. Looking at some vocabulary. The first one is gaze. All right, this is kind of like another word for a look. Okay, we get different types of looks. All right, we can gaze, we can peer, we can look, see, watch, basically. So a gaze as a verb is a steady or intent look. So it's when somebody is sort of focused on something and it's very intentional. They choose to focus on that thing. It's not by accident. So maybe I want to look at the sunrise, so I might look up and with intention and focus, I watch as the colors form in the sky and in the clouds. The other word I wanted to look at was admire as a verb, which basically means to look with wonder, pleasure, or approval. So this picture, I can't really show, it's difficult to show this, but imagine if you were this person at the top of the mountain, you're going to look at this view and it's going to be like, wow, that's amazing. How beautiful is this place? So that means you would admire it because you're looking at it with sort of wonder or pleasure. It brings you a wonderful feeling. So you admire it. All right, so that is the phrasal verb look up. Let's go to our third phrasal verb for today, which is to put on, which is basically the opposite of to take off. So let's look at some definitions. The first one is to dress oneself by wearing clothing or accessories. The second one, to apply or place something onto a surface. And the third one, to pretend or act in a way that is not genuine. Don't worry, we'll look at what genuine means shortly. Okay, so some examples. I put on my jacket before going outside in the cold weather. So earlier we said I took off my jacket when I walked into the warm house. Now you need to leave again and it's maybe cold outside. Now you have to put on your jacket before going outside because you don't want to freeze, basically. The second one, she put on some makeup before going to the party. I really liked this example because I often find with makeup, we don't, or a lot of my students can't quite find the right verb for that. And put on is the one that we would use. I put on my makeup. She put on some makeup. And then the third one, he often puts on a fake smile to hide his true feelings. So what this basically means is he's acting. Maybe he's not happy, but he smiles anyway. He's acting, he's pretending because maybe he doesn't want anybody to know how he's really feeling. So let's look at the word genuine as an adjective. All right, it means if something is genuine, it means it is real and sincere. It's true. All right, it's not fake. It's not pretend. Okay, so if something is genuine, it's real, it's the truth, and it's sincere in its nature. Okay, like you can say, I love you, and it could be genuine. You really mean it. But also sometimes people say, I love you, and it isn't true. They say it because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So it is not genuine. And then makeup, I also wanted to look at this word. Makeup can also be a phrasal verb if you separate it, but makeup is a noun in this context, which is basically facial cosmetics. So cosmetics is another word for makeup. It's a more maybe academic, more formal word for makeup, and facial obviously meaning it goes on the face, basically. So makeup as a noun is facial cosmetics. So here we can see a lot of different types of makeup. We've got some lipstick, eyeshadow. I think this is like a bronzer, I'm not sure. We've got some blush. There's lots of different things that we put on our faces, okay, to make us look pretty or make us look pretty, and then we think, you know, that's what real people look like when that isn't really the truth. And I do have some makeup on today as well. Okay, let's go to our fourth phrasal verb. Our next phrasal verb, get up. Let's look at the meanings. The first one is to rise from a lying or seated position. The second meaning, to awaken from sleep and prepare to start the day. And the third one is to find the motivation or energy to do something. Okay, so let's look at some examples. The first one, I usually have back pain if I get up from the couch too quickly. Okay, so here we are rising from maybe lying down or sitting, and if you do it too quickly, you're going to get a little bit of back pain. Okay, the second example, I struggle to get up on Monday mornings, meaning I struggle to wake up. Okay, actually I'm sleeping and I'm so comfortable and warm in my bed and it's Monday and we all hate Mondays. And we might say, I can't get up on a Monday morning. It's, my bed is just too comfortable. I can't do it, which means to wake up, to get out of bed, to wake up and start your day. And the third one, she didn't feel like getting up from her comfortable bed. Okay, so here, number 2 and number 3 can seem similar, but they are not. Okay. The main difference here is that if you struggle to wake up, it means that you are sleeping and you cannot get up, meaning the process of waking up is very difficult. Whereas the third one is maybe you're not sleeping. Maybe you're just watching some movies in bed and it's cold outside and you're just really comfortable and you have to get up and you've got to go do something. Like maybe you got to do the dishes because it's been a couple of days and it's, maybe smelling a little bad. You might say, oh, I really don't want to get up. I'm so comfortable. I'm enjoying watching these movies. I don't want to get out of my bed. It's not from sleeping to wake up. It's just that you don't want to move from where you are. You're very comfortable. You don't have the motivation or the energy to do that. Okay. Some vocabulary. A couch is a noun. It's basically another word for a sofa. Here in South Africa, we use the word couch. We don't normally say sofa. So this is the difference between American and British English. So American English, we call it a sofa. And in British English, we call it a couch. Okay? It's basically a piece of furniture for sitting, as we can see in the picture. And struggle, this is a word a lot of my students struggle with or are very unfamiliar with, and it's a lovely word. I use it all the time. As a verb, it means to do something with difficulty. Okay, so here we can see he's trying to open this bottle. It's very hard, it's very difficult. He's struggling to open the bottle. He's going, he just can't do it. Okay, so we say to struggle. If you're doing something and it's very difficult, you struggle to do that thing. All right, let's go to our next one. Turn off. Some common definitions. To switch or shut off the power supply to a device or equipment. Okay, shut off is a synonym phrasal verb that we can use here. So is switch off. It's a synonym phrasal verb that we can use here. So we're learning more phrasal verbs than the 10 that I've got today. The second sort of meaning is to cause someone to lose interest or become uninterested in something. And the last one, to make a detour or change direction from a main route. Let's look at our examples. First one, please turn off the lights before leaving the room. Okay, so the lights are on, you leave the room. We don't want to waste electricity, so we need to flip the switch. Okay, we need to turn it off so they can stop shining. All right, so we are basically stopping the electricity from getting to that equipment or device so it can no longer operate. That's what it means to turn off. We often turn off the TV, we can turn off our cell phone when we don't want anyone to bother us, and we turn off our computers at the end of the workday. The second example, the boring movie turned me off, so I stopped watching it. So the movie was so boring, I became so uninterested in it, I lost interest. So I stopped watching it. Like I couldn't watch it anymore. It was boring. I wasn't interested in it. I was turned off. We're also often turned off, especially around food, for example. So maybe you smell food and the smell just, you just don't like it. It's not for you. You could be like, oh, no, that smell has turned me off that kind of food. Okay, so maybe you don't like the smell of fish. So you could say the smell of fish turns me off. I'm not interested in eating fish or being anywhere around fish because I don't like the smell. It makes me lose interest in that thing. Okay, we can also lose interest in people. We can be turned off by people and the things that they do. All right, his behavior turned me off. I don't ever want to see him again. Maybe he did something really weird, something that you didn't quite like, so that turned you off. It made you lose interest in that person, and you don't want to see them again. All right, the third one, they decided to turn off the main road and explore a hidden trail. All right, so basically they changed direction. They took a different path, all right, to explore a hidden trail. Okay, some vocabulary, the word detour does have more meanings, but let's have a look at it as a noun. It means an indirect path. So as you can see here in the picture, sometimes when they're doing some work or maintenance on a main road, they tell you to detour, which means you now have to change your direction or find a different route to get to the same place. That is a detour. And then I thought the word trail could be an interesting word to sort of touch on here. So a noun, it's basically a path or track in nature. So it can be a walking path, but it can also be a path for cars. A little bit wider, normally a dirt road. It's a path or a trail in nature, basically. Okay. The next phrasal verb that we're looking at is give up. Very, very common one, especially around New Year's. So the first one is to stop doing or trying, usually because of difficulty or lack of success. Okay, so it means you stop doing or trying something because it's difficult or you're not seeing progress or success. The second one, to surrender in a competition or conflict. All right, to surrender. So imagine if you have a war and the one says, no, we wave the white flag. They give up, they surrender. They don't want to fight anymore. Maybe they're losing and they don't want to lose any more people, for example. And the last one, to reveal or disclose information or secrets. All right, that means you give up that information or that secret. Let's look at examples. All right, after numerous failed attempts, he finally gave up on learning the guitar. So maybe he's been learning the guitar for a very long time and it was failed. He wasn't seeing success. It was really difficult, so he gave it up. The second one, the team refused to give up and kept fighting until the end. So maybe it's a soccer team, they have a competition, and even though they weren't doing so well, they kept trying. They did not give up. They fought as hard as they could. They gave all their effort, meaning they did not give up in this context. And the last one, she reluctantly gave up the password to her phone. So password is the information, all right, and she gave it up to her phone. Somebody wanted the password to her phone and she reluctantly gave it up. So let's look at two words here. The first one is numerous, which is an adjective that means many or a great number. So here we can see lots of locks, okay? There are a lot of them. So we could say there are numerous locks in the picture or on the bridge, okay? And reluctant as an adjective, it means unwilling to do something. So when you don't want to do something, you are reluctant to do that. So here, she didn't want to give up the password. She didn't want to do that, but she did it. She reluctantly gave up the password. She didn't want to do it, but she did it. Okay. You're unwilling, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it or do it. It depends on how you use it in the sentence. Okay. I do want to mention on the phrasal verb give up that it's not always a bad thing to give up something. Okay. Sometimes we give up things and it is bad. Like if you really want to learn something or do something and you give up, that could be bad because you know that you really wanted that thing and then you gave up. Maybe it was difficult, right? sometimes that could be bad, but also it could be a good thing. Sometimes if you give up something that you don't really want or that isn't valuable to you, that's a good thing. So for example, maybe you're a smoker and you want to give that up. You don't want to do it anymore. You want to stop doing that thing. Then you can give up smoking. So here it means to stop doing, but it's not because it's difficult or a lack of success. Maybe you just don't want to do it anymore and you want to be healthier. So giving up can also be a positive thing. It's not always a negative thing. Sometimes if something is very difficult and you give it up, sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is to give up that difficult thing because the stress is not worth it. All right. And maybe the thing that you're trying to be successful in isn't that valuable. Like you wanted it, but it wasn't life-changing. And sometimes giving up can actually be the best thing that you do for your health mentally, for your stress. So it really depends on how you view the situation, what it is that you're giving up, and sort of what that means for you as a person. Next, bring up. Okay, so the first meaning, to raise or mention a topic for discussion or consideration. The second one, to care for or raise a child until they reach adulthood. And the last one, to vomit or regurgitate food or liquid. Oh, not so great. Let's look at the examples. Let's bring up the issue of the budget at the next meeting. All right. The second example, my parents brought me up to be respectful and kind. Okay, so bring up, we know bring, past tense is brought. So my parents brought me up to be respectful and kind. And the last example, the bumpy car ride made him feel like he was going to bring up his lunch. Ugh, gross. All right, so anytime you vomit or regurgitate, that's basically when something is inside your stomach and then it comes out your mouth again. Blech. All right, that means to vomit or regurgitate. Babies do it all the time. It's quite normal. All right, and sometimes when you're sick, you might vomit or bring up or regurgitate something. Regurgitate is like a very formal word for bring up. Vomit is very informal. So let's look at some vocabulary. Bumpy, another adjective, basically means an uneven surface. So here we can see the road is going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's uneven. It's not a nice smooth surface. So we would say that it is bumpy. Dirt roads or roads out in nature, trails, for example, tend to be very bumpy. Okay, so a nice adjective that maybe you could add. And that is the phrasal verb bring up. Okay, next is set up. So some meanings: to arrange or organize, typically for an event or activity. Okay, to arrange or organize for a wedding, a party, whatever it may be, a meeting. The second one, to assemble or install equipment or machinery. Okay, so if you imagine your desk normally where you have your computer and your multiple monitors or screens, right? You can't just put them anywhere, okay, because then it might not be useful for you. Or one might be covering the other. That's not really going to help you. So you need to set it up. You need to put it in the right places. You need to connect everything. You got to install what needs to be installed so that you can use your desk and that computer and screens in an efficient and normal way. So we have to set it up or set up the workspace. And then the last one, to frame or incriminate someone by planting evidence. Now, I know there's a lot of new words just in that sentence. So before we go to the examples, let's have a look at frame or incriminate and plant, because these are a bit difficult to understand. So plant, right, you're probably thinking the green thing, right, like this here, that gives you oxygen Yes, that is a plant as a noun, but plant can also be a verb, which means to actually take one of those and put it in the ground, but there are other meanings. So in this context, as set up, it means to position or hide, to deceive or observe. So I'll give you an example because it is a difficult one to understand. Imagine that I have a friend who maybe isn't really a friend and I don't like him. Maybe he's done some really bad things. He or she has not been a great person and I want them to get into trouble. Okay, so maybe with one of my other friends who's lost something or looking for something, I might hide it in this person's apartment and then they might get in trouble. All right, they would get in trouble from that friend for having that item. We might do this a lot with brothers and sisters. You know, when you want your sister or your brother to get in trouble by mom, you eat the cookie, but you make it like your brother or your sister ate the cookie, and then they get in trouble. You've basically planted that. Like maybe you've taken some of the crumbs and you've put it, I don't know, next to their bed. Okay, you've planted those things so it makes them look like they're hiding. They are trying to deceive. They are in that position, even though they didn't do anything. To frame or incriminate is basically the same. It's to make an innocent person look guilty. So I want my brother or sister to get in trouble for eating the cookie. Okay, I want to frame them. Okay, but I frame them by taking cookie crumbs and putting it all over their bed. And then when mom walks into the room and sees all the little cookie crumbs, she goes, you ate the cookies and you weren't supposed to. Now you're in trouble. Okay, that's basically what it means to frame or incriminate and then to plant the evidence. So to help make them look bad, basically. Okay, let's look at our examples. Let's bring up the issue of the budget at the next meeting. Okay, so it means let's arrange or organize this type of thing. We're going to bring it up. Okay. My parents brought me up to be respectful. Oh, I see, I actually copied the wrong ones. I'm talking about bring up instead of set up. All right, so set up, let me give you some examples, and I'm actually just going to write on the screen so that we can get some good examples. It obviously didn't copy over, unfortunately. My apologies. So we'll write it in here ourselves. This is why I like Zoom. If I need to make any corrections, I can do it quite easily. So I'm going to put a little box in here. Maybe not a green box. Maybe change that to a white box if I can. Let's try that again. There we go. Let's have a look at some examples. I'm going to create them as we are right here. So the first one, A. And I suppose you need to see the writing. There we go. All right, so to arrange or organize, typically for an event or an activity, we could say, my sister is going to the wedding early to help set up the decorations. All right, so basically we're saying that she is going to go early to the wedding to help set up. She's going to help arrange and organize for this event. All right, so a very nice example there. Let's go to our second one. Okay, to assemble or install equipment or machinery. I kind of gave an example earlier, but let's write it in here. I need to set up my new workspace tomorrow, or I cannot do the report, So basically we're just saying I need to put all those things together. I need to assemble and install them so that I can complete this action. And then the last one, to frame or incriminate. So for example, I could say her brother was the one who stole the money, but he set her up. We'll add on there by hiding the money under her bed. Okay, so her brother stole the money, but he set her up by hiding the money under her bed. Okay, so he stole the money and then he made it look like she did that. He planted the evidence under her bed and then she looked like the criminal when it wasn't actually her. So she was set up. All right. I hope that helps. So I'm going to clear these and let's go to our next phrasal verb. Okay, look forward to. So the first one is, or the definition, there's really only one that we commonly use here. It means to feel excited about something that is going to happen. So if you feel excited about something in the future, you look forward to that thing. So some examples. I'm really looking forward to our vacation next week. The second one, she looked forward to spending time with her family during the holidays. I know it's the summer holidays now in the Northern Hemisphere, and I'm sure everybody is feeling this. They're really looking forward to spending time with their families, or just looking forward to your vacation, right? And the last one, we look forward to seeing you at the party tonight. Okay, meaning you're excited to have them come to the party and spend some time with them, or you're just excited to see them and have them come to the party. So we'll quickly look at the vocabulary. Excited as an adjective, which means to be emotionally charged. So if you are emotionally charged and happy, we say that you are excited. You have all this energy. All right, so you're all charged up. You've got all this energy inside of you, lots of happiness and good feelings. You are excited. Okay, and I think this is our last phrasal verb. This is phrasal verb number 10, which is to carry out. So the meanings: to perform or complete a task, duty, or responsibility. The second one, to conduct or execute a plan, procedure, or experiment. Looks very similar to the first one. All three look very similar, but they can be used in very specific contexts. So that's why I covered the slight differences between these. And to accomplish or fulfill something as planned. Let's look at the examples. The chef will carry out the instructions in the recipe. Okay, so he's going to perform, he's going to complete that. The second one, the researchers carried out an experiment to test their theory. So this is a little more specific. It's an experiment. They're sort of trying to see what are the results, what's going to happen. So they carry that out. And the last one, he carried out his plan flawlessly. So we're talking about he accomplished it. All right, and he did it in a very good way. He planned to do it and he did it. He carried it out. Okay, so some vocabulary. Experiment as a noun, a test to see the results. We often see it something like this. You can see the kids are playing around with some liquids and chemicals, and you know what happens? You mix them together and things happen. All right, that is an experiment. You're testing, you're playing around with things to see what are the results? What is going to happen? Is it true? Is it false? That is an experiment. We don't only do it in the lab. We also experiment with our language or with people or with marketing. Those are all things that we experiment with. And then we have recipe. Okay, so be careful. It's not recipe. I hear that very, very often. It's recipe. So there are three very distinct syllables. It's a noun. It's basically instructions for making food. So you know when you're making your grandma's soup for winter or a salad maybe for summer, you need a list of ingredients and a method. How do you do it? How do you make it? Do you put the water in first and then you put in the chopped vegetables? How do you make this thing? How do you bake a cake if you don't know the process? That process is normally written in the form of a recipe. It tells us what to do. Right. That I'm sure is our last one. And I think I'm right. Yes. So let's look at our exercise. What can you do to practice and use these phrasal verbs? Okay, because there's no point learning about them and not using them. All right, so I create these little exercises so that you can activate this English into your daily life. Okay, otherwise you've just spent all this time watching this video and you're probably going to forget them. So this is my way of helping you remember them and know how to use them. So I would like you to use 2 of these phrasal verbs. You can choose any 2 of them, and you are going to write them in your own sentence. So use 2 of these phrasal verbs in your own sentence. The more real that sentence or context is for your life, the more likely you will remember it. And I would also like you to answer these 3 questions. Who do you look up to? You've got to decide which meaning should I use here? And then how do I answer this question? Number 2, what are you looking forward to? Okay. And tell me one thing you carry out at work. If you don't work, if you're a student, you can just tell me something that you do every day. What is one thing that you carry out every day? Something that you do every day or carry out every day. All right. So how to win? Very easy. Complete the exercises, answer the questions, put it in the comments. You have 1 week to submit your answer. So by next week, Saturday, 4 p.m., that is when the competition will close. And for anybody who has commented and participated, you will be put into a draw. And then you can win a 50-minute session with me. And we can use it for English planning, advice, creating a study plan, whatever you want to use it for. Maybe you have some burning questions about English or words that you always confuse. It doesn't matter. These 50 minutes are for you to use however you want. All right. To quickly mention as well, just so that you know that there are other things happening, and I'm just waiting for my slides to carry over. If you are interested in building habits with your English, because habits are normally the things that help keep us consistent and help us to learn something where it doesn't feel like a lot of effort, I have created a free download where you can master English with habits. So in this download, I explain what is a habit, how do we form habits, and I give you examples of how you can create English habits that don't require too much effort or energy, and are quite stress-free and easy to do. So if you want the download, it will be in the description. So have a look at the link. It's completely free. All right, you don't have to pay for it. And it's really useful. Very, very good information is in this document. I also have my vocabulary templates. So if you are a person who loves to learn new vocabulary or phrasal verbs or idioms or collocations, you can use these templates to practice it, but also to make sure those words go into long-term memory, but also to make it a little more fun. Rather than repeating the word over and over and over again, maybe you want to play a game with the word. And that's why I created these vocabulary templates. They help us to review and remember the vocabulary. There are 9 templates. You can buy them individually or as a bundle. They are digital and printable, which means if you like to write by hand, you can print out the printable version and fill it in. But if you want to do everything on the computer, you can do it all on the documents. So you don't have to print it. You can do it on your computer or on your cell phone. There are fun activities and games to learn and review new words. So for example, one of the games I have is Pictionary. There's a wordsmith game. There's a story time, a roll the dice. So you basically can roll a virtual dice and it will tell you what you need to do with that word. I also have story time. So if you like to create stories and you're very creative, you can use the story time template to sort of remember 3 or 4 or 5 words at a time. You don't have to only do one word in some of these templates. And there's even Pictionary. So if you're a visual learner and you learn really well by seeing something visually, you can insert images and the definition of the word to help you remember it a little bit better. They're also colorful, all right? And science and psychology shows that color really helps us put things into our memory. So I've also designed them to be nice and colorful. So sometimes when you're trying to think of that word, you might think of the color first which is then going to help you to recall that word. All right, so those are my vocabulary templates. If you're not interested in any of that, I do also have an email community where I share interesting learning tips. I do some roundups with my content if you missed anything. I even sometimes give you some practice activities or a study plan for the week. So if you just want to learn more about how to learn better, some strategies that you can use, or maybe you don't even have content, you can sign up to my English community and you'll get access to all this valuable and interesting information. All right, and you've also then got a direct way of talking to me and speaking to me because I always check and respond to all my emails. And I also ask some interesting questions. So that's also good practice to have these sort of conversations with me through my English community. All right, I've taken enough of your time for today. We looked at 10 common phrasal verbs, and I hope you enjoyed learning them, the different meanings. I hope you enjoyed the example sentences and also the vocabulary that we learned as well. So I think in today's video, you didn't learn only 10 phrasal verbs. We probably did about 12 to 15 phrasal verbs and probably another maybe 20 to 25 new words that we looked at as well. So lots of information today. That's it from me. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and I look forward to seeing you for the next live. Don't forget to complete the exercise, complete the activities, all right, so that you can get your chance to enter the draw and win a 50-minute session with me. All right, that's it from me. Have a wonderful day, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you soon. Good luck and keep studying hard. See you next time. Bye.